Howdy! Saddle up, everybody, because we're going on an adventure like no other with our 2025 Block of the Month with our designer, Lynn Wilder. The stories you're going to hear. Oh, the stress-free piecing you're going to learn, and the stress-free applique you're going to love. Oh my gosh, let's go. Giddy up!
And now, your hosts for the Quilt Show, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms.
Welcome to the Quilt Show and Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, and TQS is starting its 19th year.
I cannot believe it. I want to say thank you, Bernina. Thank you.
They've been with us all the way. And Alex, I feel like we just kind of took a journey and now we kind of moved a little along down the road.
But, okay, I'm going to ignore that.
All right.
But what I want to say is it's BOM time.
It is BOM time, and we are so excited about our BOM designer for this year, and boy, do we have a story to tell. Please welcome to the Quilt Show, Lynn Wilder.
Woohoo! Hey. Lynn, thank you so much. We've been following your work for a very, very long time, and in fact, you were on the show
10 years ago.
Yeah. And you were teaching your Patchwork Math Made Easy.
Right. And now I've changed the name to Finessing the Figures.
Okay.
Took the math out of it. So
That's
it's Finessing
scary.
the Figures.
Don't let them be scared about that.
Right.
But you're a designer. You've been doing that now, and you have designed our TQS BOM for this year.
And she's like sworn to pinky swear secrecy. So what would you were telling, because you blog and stuff, right?
I blog, so I've just been showing little snippets along the way and getting people excited and letting them know you can do this.
Right, and I understand that your followers are like, because they know something secret's going on. It's like a Hallmark movie is in the works.
They're convinced that I'm going to be filming a Hallmark movie and it'll be coming out at the same time.
Oh, so perfect.
Well,
I've gone along with that for a while.
It's definitely a Hallmark achievement, and you're here on the Quilt Show, and I think it's time to reveal the quilt.
We have not seen it yet, and when she came yesterday, it was like, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. So we are introducing this year's 2025 BOM by Lynn Wilder. Oh my gosh, Lynn.
The quilting too.
Oh my
Look at
gosh.
that. How exciting. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
How big are the blocks in this?
They are 5 inches.
Wow.
And there are 200 5-inch blocks, 20 applique blocks, and one 20-inch block.
And the overall quilt is what size?
90 by 90.
90 by, that's a good size.
And this is your fabric line,
Yes.
correct? With whom?
It's Marcus Fabrics, and it's called Hearthstone.
Okay.
So a hearthstone is the center stone in a fireplace.
And what I love about this is, I don't even know how we got you to do this, but this is the grandma quilt.
Right.
And then you have a granddaughter quilt.
The granddaughter quilt. The people at Marcus Fabrics are wonderful to work for, and they came up with the idea of recoloring the fabric in brights. They took a look at your website. They knew the caliber and the kind of quilting that you have, so they recolored it all in the same line, but it's in brights.
So we see the one with the more strong, darker colors. Now let's look at the version that's going to be with the lighter colors. And OMG, that's going to be real fun. So that gives people options.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And here is just a little piece of it that's on our table. You know, I'd be hard pressed which one to do.
I would be hard pressed to know which one to do because they're both really beautiful. What was your thinking behind this? What was your goal and style and all of that?
After I got over the terror, I am known for making blocks with a lot of pieces. So I thought, why didn't I become known for making a quilt with a lot of blocks? And I just started playing with the blocks and turning them all directions to come up with that design. And a 5-inch block is really easy to make.
Really?
So yes, it is. So we will be breaking that down, and it's just very doable.
You know, it's funny because we're always seeking the next BOM person, and we were at Quilt Market, and Kristen and I were walking around. I think Kristen found it first, and we're going, oh, and you have that BOM here too, right?
Yes.
And Lynn's a friend of mine. I mean, we've known each other and this
Yes.
and that, and so it was like, yeah, we can get Lynn to do it. We can get Lynn to do it. Thank you for saying yes. And thanks for not.
Well, so you guys, Lynn has taken this year's BOM to the nth degree. You are incorporating, first of all, the grandma and granddaughter. Give us a little oversight on that.
Well, we thought with the Hearthstone line that it was a little more of reproduction fabric. So we decided to call that the grandmother version. And then with our my granddaughter, who just graduated from Arizona State University with a degree in film, is going to be filming all of my tutorials. So that's where the granddaughter comes in. Plus, for the granddaughters, there's different methods to make this easier and different styles of quilting that they like to do.
See, that's crazy. I mean, crazy and fabulous is what I want to say about that. And then you're a writer because you have your blog. And now tell us about the
book or the story.
The story component that goes with this.
Well, I've been I've got 6 chapters out there, so now I'm going to beef them up more, and we'll be starting over, reintroducing Lexi.
So the character's name is Lexi.
Lexi, because her father loved Lexington, Kentucky, so whether he had a boy or a girl, he wanted to name her Lexi. So she's my character, and unfortunately, her husband was killed in the mines, which happened a lot back there in the 1930s.
So this is a 1930s story?
Yes,
okay.
1930s. And I think that this fabric looks very 1930-ish.
Yeah. Now, what I think is interesting is you lived in Paradise, California for quite a while, and while you're telling the story of Lexi, where each month, as you get the new pattern, it will be the next installment of Lexi, you're pulling from a lot
It's a soap opera.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You are pulling from some of your childhood experiences in Paradise, California.
We had some very colorful characters in town. There was little Georgie Stoltz, who was sure that there was an Indian behind every tree. So he would walk around town with his little bow and arrow.
For real, when you were a kid?
For real. And we call him Little Georgie, but he was 42 years old, that I remember. So I am bringing in the colorful characters, Jenny Kenline, Maud Garrettson, all of these old-fashioned names that just weave themselves into the story.
That's great. That's going to be so much fun. You guys are going to have a blast.
It's rich. Now you are, this is what we call ourselves, a liver moron.
Right.
But you bought a place up in
Arnold.
And you still have your Livermore place, but it was supposed to be part-time in Arnold. Well, that didn't happen.
No, we wanted to experience one whole year and all the seasons. So we enjoyed it so much we're starting year number 7 full-time.
I think the place is beautiful. Tell me about the picture with all of the quilts hanging outside.
I was going to do a guild lecture over in Sonora, and I thought I need to air out my quilts. So I hung them all out over the railing, and it looks so pretty. I thought I need to take a picture of this.
Beautiful.
So that's the start of my guild talk, is that picture.
That's just wonderful. And by the way, the Lexi story, we're going to talk more about that in the after set. So stick around after the credits because it's going to relate to a historical event called Packhorse
Librarians from the 1935s, and it was a WPA program started by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah, we're going to cover that a little bit more
I had not
later.
heard of it, and okay.
Well, all right. So you've done other BOMs, and I would love to show those to our viewers. So tell us about this one.
This is called A Ribbon Runs Through It. And sometimes I come up with the title of the quilt or the name of the quilt before I've designed the quilt. So I have the ribbon running through this, and I'm going to show you today how to make that ribbon very easily.
Nice.
How fun. So, and what was that for? What
that was a Marcus Fabrics Block of the Month. Judy Rothermel designed those fabrics.
Okay.
Well, when did you start designing with them then?
2 years ago.
Okay, so you did it for other designers. Like I used to do stuff for Jennifer Sampu, and then I went into fabric. So it was kind of the same thing with Marcus?
I was just so lucky that I happened to have a quilt hanging in a shop in San Jose, and the Marcus reps came through with some of the higher ups, and they saw it. and the rest is history.
But see, that's the thing. That's how it rolls in this industry. And the main thing is if you get approached, don't say no. Walk through that door and you just don't know.
Right,
You just don't know.
All right, so this one, tell us about it.
This one is the one that you saw in
Yes.
Quilt Market, and it's called Bridle Path, BRIDLE, because these are the pack horse librarians walking through the forest in the bridle path to the different cottages in the woods.
That is just beautiful.
So do they retain that quilt or is it yours after the...
It's mine.
Okay, good.
Ooh, very, very, very good. All right, you're retired from...
Yes. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. I was a Geographic Information Systems Analyst, so I mapped and analyzed data.
She's smart.
I was going to say, yeah. Yes, she is smart,
Yes, she
Ricky.
is smart.
And there's so much there's so much overlap between mapping and quilting because of the colors. Because you have to get your point across with the color, and there's borders and just so much overlay that it was kind of natural to go into quilting.
That's
from the
wonderful.
mapping.
We've got 3 more quilts we want to show everybody, so tell us about these.
This is Grammy squares, and I love combining different techniques. I've got some applique in there and then working with the hexagon. And I find with that one, I can put any colors in a quilt if I have them outlined in black.
Okay, that's an
fabulous.
interesting.
You're right.
That's an interesting tip. Okay,
Look
this one.
at this. This is
And this is called
spectacular.
Calico Cottages, and it incorporates the foundation paper piecing. And I absolutely love it, but every time I start foundation paper piecing, I have to get my own directions out. So
I know. So how do you? I know.
Yeah.
It takes a minute. That's for sure.
And as we bring out this last one, I'm just going to
Oh,
say,
my
I'm just
gosh.
noticing that, of course, you have a traditional bent with your designs, but they dance and they sparkle, and you have such a great way of putting this together. Tell us about this.
this one is called Country Courthouse, and we were basically snowed in to our cabin for about a month. It was just kind of hard to get out, but we could have gotten out, and I just kept making little 9 patches, and it's all 1-inch strips
So these are patterns that
Yes.
you have, and then you would get them where?
through Etsy,
Okay.
and some shops carry them,
Nice.
but mainly through Etsy.
Nice.
Well, stress-free piecing is what you're going to share with us when we come
Right.
back, because some of it looks like, but it's not, right?
It's not.
I'm so glad
It's
you said
not.
yes to this year's journey in 2025, right?
And I appreciate you asking me.
We're
That's
excited.
great.
Okay, everybody, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with our 2025 BOM designer, Lynn Wilder, and I want to tell everybody why you're in the saddle here, okay?
Okay.
Because you've got a leg injury today, and
Right.
so as a result of that, Lynn is going to take it easy, but it's not going to take it easy for teaching us. You're going to give us the whole shebang, right?
I will. And
I'm
I can look
excited.
up to you. I've looked up to you for years.
Oh, sweetheart, you're wonderful. All right, so in this book, you have organized everything for the BOM, and I am so surprised at that. So tell everybody what you've done.
When you are quilting, organization and the process of quilting is everything. Because there may be times when you have to set it aside for a while. You're going to be making 200 blocks, 5-inch blocks, and 20 applique blocks, so be organized. So you will be receiving whether or not you're doing the granddaughter version or the grandmother version. You'll be receiving the color-coded directions.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So start a binder, and I buy these envelopes and I do the 3-hole punch, so as I make blocks I can put them all in here.
Wow, that's a binder that you punched holes in.
Yes.
Wow.
So I can just keep it all together and not lose anything. So
how many blocks are in that, do you think? Just a guess.
Probably 14.
14.
14.
Wow.
But there are some that have more. So be organized from the beginning and you'll make your life much happier.
And this is essentially month by month
Month by month.
so that you'll know where you are and everything stays organized.
Right.
That is fabulous.
So you can just, if you have time, you can take this off the shelf and start working. And I find when I quilt, I get everything ready the night before so that I can hit the ground running in the morning. I have everything laid out by my sewing machine, and I can just start piecing.
So now you've really confused me because I'm looking at finished blocks in here, but are you saying that you put the unfinished cutting?
Yes.
If you're ready to sew, whatever you cut, that goes in.
Correct.
And then as it gets finished, it goes in as a finished block.
Correct. And here's a little tipsy. Let's
Let me
close
move this out
up.
of the way, yep.
So throughout the session, I'll be doing little tipsies. So these are just index cards that I've cut up. And I would write on here like 1 1/4 inch by whatever, or the block number. And I've just hole punched the index cards, and I put a pin, and I'm good to go.
So yeah, that pin is actually going into a strip of fabric or whatever, but it
Correct.
becomes a label. And then that can actually go in your binder as
Right,
well. So when you
right.
pull it out, you're not wondering, well, is this the 1 1/8 or is this the 1 1/4? It's
Right.
whatever you've written on it.
Right. So
What
you're
a
not
great tip.
constantly remeasuring.
That is amazing.
So you're good to go when you wake up in the morning.
Lynn, you're organized.
I am. I
right.
am. So I want to show you that this is a center block. This is a 20-inch block. This is huge for me. I never make 20-inch blocks, but I wanted to have a nice medallion in the center. So this will be your first month that you're going to work on.
And this is the granddaughter version.
This is a granddaughter
right? And I
version.
just want to point to how it's dynamic and showing there in the grandmother version that's
Right.
behind us. So this
Right.
is kind of what gets them started.
This will get you started, so you'll have something to put up on your design wall. But what I really want to stress, this is a corner. So you'll be making, there's 25 blocks. And you can see how easy some of these are. You've got half square triangles.
I'm going to point to them kind of slowly just so that everybody can see the half square triangles. I'm counting
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those.
6 of
And
those.
what's this block?
I forget the name of that block. You had to ask them that one.
What is that?
Cat's Cradle.
Cat's Cradle, okay.
So you've got several of those in the quilt. You're going to have a lot of these because I love having the chain running through the quilt.
Right.
And then this little pink, this looks like rickrack to me, which was used a lot in the 1930s.
It also has a prairie point feel.
Right.
To be honest, it
Right.
really, really feels very, very traditional.
So they may look complex, but they're not. But when you combine them together, it adds that complexity.
But today you're going to show us a couple of blocks that are in not the half square triangle mode,
Right.
but they look complex, but they're not, right?
Right.
All right, so let's go there.
Okay. So each month, and you'll decide if you're going to do the grandmother, or the granddaughter. Everything is color coded, so you can see exactly what you need to cut along the way.
That is
and then you use your
fabulous.
little labels, and you're good to go.
I think that color, and that's the actual fabrics,
That's
right?
the actual fabric.
Oh my word, that's going to make it so easy.
So I'm going to talk about these blocks. So you're going to be doing some strip piecing for your
Okay.
center 9 patch.
All right.
And then you'll
4
be
patch.
4 patch.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you'll be stitching them together, and I've got all of the pressing directions in there.
So let's look at this. You've got, in this case, you've got the seam pressed towards the blue.
Right.
Okay. So to the dark side.
Correct.
And then cross-cutting.
Right.
All right.
So these will nest in perfectly.
Yeah, that looks
And then
fabulous.
pin. So many of my quilters in classes won't pin.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Okay.
Come, you can smack me. That's okay. I'm all right with it.
I always pin, but I never stitch over a pin. I was
Okay.
in a class one time and a woman stitched over the pin, and luckily she was wearing glasses.
Has it
So you-
broken hit her?
Yes,
Oh, my
it broke
word.
and hit her. So then I don't know the name for this. I call it the little doohickey. This is where you want to open up these seams. So I'm going to show you here.
Okay.
You're actually going to be taking these seams and you're just going to be pulling out.
Do you have to snip the thread to do
I
that?
do not.
What?
I do not want to ruin the,
This
now
is
I can't get
magic
it.
for me. I've got my nose right here
so
on
I'm
it.
pulling that down and I'm
Yeah.
going to turn it over and I'm going to pull the other side down. And then when you open it up,
Would you look at that?
it lays, and I think there is a word for this.
Okay.
But I like Lynn's doohickey better.
Yeah, and there's no undoing the seam. How did
No.
that happen?
So you're just removing the stitches right along here.
Oh, you picked them out. You picked the stitching
Yes.
out from the edge to the
Correct.
stitch to the seam. Okay.
So it lays nice and flat.
Oh my
and
gosh, look at that.
I'm finding the more that I quilt, I'm opening up more of my seams, but I didn't want to do it on here.
Okay.
One thing I forgot to mention, I starch, and you can really feel the stiffness of these blocks. And I find when I starch, there's less fraying, it's more accurate, and I will starch these so much you can almost bounce a quarter
Okay,
off of them.
okay.
And I do use either the Niagara, or I had a friend who actually bought a weed sprayer, and she made up a solution of water, and she would put it out on her wooden dryer and just spray the fabric.
Wow.
I highly recommend that.
All right, now that brings me to a question. When the quilt is totally finished with all the starch, do you then wash it, or
You can.
You can or you can't? I mean, does
The
it
one
matter?
in back of me has not been washed.
Okay.
And it is a little stiffer, but it's fine.
Yeah, but we're making a quilt that we probably would love to use and love, so it's probably going to get, you know, washed every now and then. That's beautiful.
So now we've got flying geese. So I always like to make my flying geese 4 at a time. And I'm beginning with my square, and I'm putting my little wings on. You know, there's so many different tools. There's so many different ways to do the same thing, and I say do what you're comfortable with. If you have success with that method, stick with
you
it.
use that, yeah, sure.
So I always mark it, and I know there are things that you can put on your sewing machine to do a straight line, but I like to mark it. I find with a friction pen, I find that it's just more accurate.
Okay, and that's going to go away with heat?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it will.
And also, the measurements that we're looking at today, guys, they're all in the pattern, so don't even go there. We're just trying to give you the tips to get there. For starters, because you've got video lessons coming out every month.
Right,
Okay?
right.
So,
And I have a whole session on the quilt show with all of these measurements, so you can change them, make them different sizes.
that's fabulous.
So you're going to stitch these on and then cut it apart. And then you end up with 2 of these. So you're
Right.
going to put on another square, mark, stitch,
And then cut it apart.
cut it
Again?
apart, and you end up with 4 flying geese. So if you have to make a lot of these, say 80 or whatever, you can chain piece all of these and get them all done very quickly.
Wow, of course,
Yeah.
of course.
So now, and I highly recommend that you get a block lock ruler. And I
Right.
love the block lock rulers because as I trim these, I never lose my 1/4 inch. It's always perfect.
It is. We've shown these on the quilt show before, and I just want to hold this up so everybody can see. This is BLOC, block lock, and these are going to be vital, really,
Right,
to get
right.
accuracy. I love the way those fit right in there, and they snug up right to the seam.
And when you're trimming, they don't slip. So it's just perfect for this.
That's
so
great.
you'll be making a lot of these blocks, and you're going to keep getting better at them each time you make them.
Of course you get better.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
So
That's great.
I've picked kind of an easy block, and then this one, there's a little more to it. Again, everything is starched, so it's really stiff,
Right, that feels great.
and it's much easier to work on. You'll be getting your color coded directions. So you'll be making your center 9 patch. And you'll be doing strip sewing.
Okay.
When you put these together, you want to stitch one way going out because it's the full width of fabric, and then you're going to turn around and stitch the other way.
Why?
If you do them both the same way, you're going to get a rainbow effect.
The curve, the bending.
Right.
Right.
And you don't want to do that. So you're going to be making your pink and then your plaid. And I love this plaid. I always tell the kids that my favorite color is plaid, and they keep telling me it's not a color, and I disagree. And then you'll be cutting them apart and then sewing them together. And I did the little doohickey thing here
Oh my
too.
gosh, look at this, you guys. So you just have to pick out a little notch right down to this stitch, and then you make that so flat and beautiful. And the workmanship, I'm looking at
flat.
this, it's just perfect. And you've
It
got a
is
trick
flat.
for that you're going to show us
I
in a minute,
do have
right?
a trick for that.
Yeah.
Let me show you on.
Yeah, let's keep going with this
Okay.
block.
So now we have to do half square triangles. So we're going to be making 8 half square triangles at a time. So I can make one, by starting with the blue and the ivory. And you're going to be marking, again, this is another really great tool. It's a 1/4 inch ruler, and it's much more accurate when you mark first.
Draw the lines.
Draw the line. And then I always say, I teach a lot, and I teach a lot in churches, and we're in a church today.
Yeah, we are.
So I always say, you're going to be trimming these, cutting down, and it's half the distance. I always say, make the sign of the cross first when you cut.
Okay.
It would make more sense to cut it like that, but then you don't get your accuracy.
Right.
Here.
So do north-south,
Right.
and then east-west,
Right.
and then come in and cut in between.
Right. And another little tipsy, because I have to do things in a hurry
Okay.
when I'm making my blocks of the month. So I would take all of these, and I would do a bunch of these at one time. And then when you take it to your sewing station, put the side that you're going to press to, put them on top so you know which way you're going to press. Is the iron hot?
And it is, well, it has been. Let's put it that way. I believe it is. Do you want to do a little press?
Yeah.
All right.
First of all,
All right.
how could I forget?
Okay.
This is a fabric folding pen. It comes apart and I can squirt in starch. I put in best press starch.
And then now you're going to what?
I put just a line, but I think the elevation got to this and it spit out quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, that happens at elevation,
Yeah.
trust me. And then just do a press.
Then
I
do
don't
a
want to
press.
burn your fingers. Oops, okay. Now, is that the size or is that going to get trimmed?
No, we're going to trim that down. But say I've made 80 of these. And I'll put my gypsy quilter on there. If they're really getting out of hand, I double up
To keep it flat?
to keep it
Oops,
flat.
There it is.
And
Now-
then I'm going to trim this down.
And what ruler do you use for that?
Another block lock ruler.
Okay.
And we're going to trim these down to 1.5 inches. So I'll trim this side, and I'm lucky that I can cut with both hands, and then I'm going to slide it over and cut
do
the
the
other.
other side. And that's going to be really easy. We are running out of time. I want you to show this trick right
Okay.
here.
Okay.
Because you guys, I have found in my experience that I do the fiddly, fussy, beautiful piecing, but when I think I've done everything so well, my block is either a little bit skewed or a little bit just out of whack. And this is a miracle for me.
I have pressed a 5.5 inch piece of freezer paper on a Teflon backing. When I want to release this, I would just iron it again and it would come right up. Then I'm going to place pins all the way around here, probably maybe 10 per side.
Wow.
And I
That's
totally-
40 pins.
40 pins.
Oh, wow.
But because this is padded, they go right in. And then I use the best press and I totally saturate this block.
And then you iron it.
No.
See, there's where I
no.
went wrong.
Yeah. If you iron it when it's wet, then you're going to distort it. You press it, you walk away.
You
wait
press
till,
it?
No, I'm sorry. You spray it.
You spray it.
Spray it and then walk away. Look at it in the morning, and it's going to be a perfect 5.5 inch block.
That's amazing. So just pin, 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 pin.
Right.
And making sure you're matching the edge. I want you guys to look at the back of this block. This is this is why it's beautiful. The pressing, the accuracy, everything that you've done is absolutely wonderful.
And when I press seams open, what I like to use is this little pressing tool, and I can put it right on here, and it helps fold it the other way.
That's really wonderful.
So I get the heat coming up from the top and from the iron coming down.
Well, goodness gracious.
So you can do this quilt. Anybody can do this
I'm
quilt.
excited about this year. It's going to be a wonderful, and if you think you can't, don't say nay, 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 because you can. This horse thing is coming up because of those.
The pack horse
The pack
librarians.
horse, yeah, that's what's
Right,
going on
right.
today. And when we come back, Alex is going to visit with you doing applique.
Right.
You think maybe you can't, but you say you can, and it's going to be easy. So
Mm-hmm.
let's see that when we come back.
On the next quilt show, her experimentation with fiber, with mixed media and photographs takes her to the next level when it comes to her art in ways you've never seen before.
When Redmond says she makes art, but then her art makes her. You don't want to miss it.
She somehow stumbled across making her images holographic, and now she wants you to learn how.
Then see how Wynn texturizes her images using products like molding paste and ink aid. We were blown away with what we were seeing.
Plus, Ricky recently had a full circle moment involving a quilt that he made for his parents more than 25 years ago. See the quilt and learn how to make the block.
But just wait till you hear how this all came together in a very colorful way.
This show features a lot of art and heart.
And a lot of experimentation gone right, only on the next Quilt Show.
Welcome back. I'm with Lynn now, and we're gonna do applique, both finished applique and raw edge. I have to tell you, I have unbridled enthusiasm for this year's BOM.
Good, good. Well, I have to tell you, when Shelley, the producer, called, I was horrified when she wanted me to show both methods of applique because I do not do raw edge applique.
You've never done that?
One time.
Okay.
Years ago. So I had to go on the quiltshow.com. I looked up, searched raw edge applique, and I taught myself that. And I included some methods that I use when I work with wool.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm going to show you today. The first thing I like to use is this Flexi Fuse. And take a feel of that.
I've not seen this before. So the paper comes off and it's just that thin stuff?
Yes. And it adheres really well, especially with wool too, and very well with this. But a little tipsy, do not put this through your printer thinking you're going to
That'll be the
save
end
time.
of your printer.
I spent about a half an hour cleaning out my printer.
I wrecked a printer with something else like that. That was the end of it.
So you're going to pick your fabrics, and I just love this array of fabrics that you're going to use in your applique.
Okay.
And this is actually the finished. I'm still working on it, but this gives you an idea of what it's going to look like.
So cute. I cannot believe. Lynn Wilder, I cannot believe you had to go look that up.
I did.
Awesome.
I did. I'm admitting that in front of everybody. Okay. So you're going to be using a Sharpie, and you're going to be marking on the paper side.
Oh, of this, yeah.
Of the Flexi Fuse, and watch out, that is hot.
Yes, it is. I just felt it go over the sun. Woo, the iron.
And I've got all my little pieces here.
And what are we doing now? Needle turn?
No, we're doing the
raw edge first?
The raw edge first. So I've worked on a couple of these.
And this would be the placement on the block.
Right.
Okay.
And I am going to, when you cut these out, you can see I didn't cut directly in the line. Now I'm going to cut along the line because I just didn't want anybody running into each other.
Well, and not only that, that helps with any sort of fraying, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to cut those out. And I would say the trickiest part of this are the leaves. Because they're a little bit tiny. But on this it's much easier than on the
needle turn.
They're
pointy.
Right, they're pointy. But I'm going to cut right on the line. And when you're cutting, you want to move your fabric and not your scissors so much.
And those are Karen K. Buckley's, right?
Right.
So I love those. They're serrated.
So I'm going to be cutting right along the line. And notice that I've numbered everything. And normally, another little tipsy, this is number 3, so I'm going to place that here.
All right.
I find the hardest thing is peeling off the paper. And I made the mistake one time of trimming my nails down before a class, and I couldn't peel into the paper.
Don't you use like a pin and just go like that?
I wish I'd known that. Would have made it much easier. But you peel off the paper. But I found a game changer that I really like is this acrylic
pressing mat.
And you put your template underneath.
Okay.
And you can press right on this.
I see where you're going. Love it. Okay, got it.
And you can see exactly where the placement is. So when I put these on and my other little components here, and I do this as a whole unit.
Yeah.
And I can press, and let's press.
Okay, but here's the thing. But you wouldn't press. You don't need to. It's where they're connected, right?
Where they're connected. So I would press this here. And I have this little sealing iron, And it's a Habaco sealing iron, and it's my understanding that they're hard to find now, but they do have sealing irons. So once I put all that together and I add that other flour, it just peels right up.
Love it, love it.
And then I can place it on. And I do use a light table next for placement on the fabric.
Gotcha.
And one thing that I want to point out too, I use the Terreal Magic, and I spray it on my background fabric.
I was honestly surprised when we were preparing to pick that up, and it was so rigid.
Yes.
And so you're saying you do that because?
I do that because I have no, you're going to be manhandling this. You don't have any frame. And this is a 7.5 inch block, and I did outline a 1/4 inch so that nothing would go in the seam. And I'll just press that out when I'm done because I use a friction pen.
But also you said when we were setting up, then it doesn't shrink.
It does not shrink because say for a 7.5 inch block, I would always cut it 8 inches.
And then
do my applique, but it was always so hard to get it the correct size and get everything centered correctly.
So because it is so stiff, it is a little bit harder to needle. Let's just put that out there. Is it okay to needle like with 3 layers?
It is harder, and I do use a thimble, which I don't have here.
Okay.
Or this is just an option. I love the process, the hand process.
I love this.
So I love to work with wool, and I thought, why can't I put a buttonhole stitch on here and doing it by hand? You could definitely do this by machine, and it would be fine. I just don't like to change the colors all the time, so I find this is just as satisfying to me to be able to do the needlework.
Okay.
So this is the granddaughter method.
Is the granddaughter quilt done like that? Because we don't have it here. Is it all blanket stitched like that, Roy Edge?
Well, I don't have it either.
Okay, we'll see.
I plan on doing it like this.
Do you? Okay.
Because I like that little extra,
Are you going to make it?
That's what's in the binders or all of the blocks. So I will eventually make it.
Awesome.
So I'm going to introduce, like I said before, the center block and then the applique. This is a little bit easier, and you can feel, again, how stiff this is.
Yep, that's a Terreal Magic. Let me hold this up for everybody if you've not seen this. It is magic. I mean, it is, but it really makes things stiff.
What's interesting about this, though, you spray it on, you let it totally saturate the fibers, and then you press 10 minutes later. And you get that nice stiff. So I've got all of these prepared.
Do you starch it up, Terreal it up before you cut it or after you cut it?
I starch it before I cut it.
Okay.
Because the Terreal Magic will shrink it up.
Okay.
But once it's already shrunk, it's not going to shrink anymore.
That's it. Okay, got it.
So this is one of the applique blocks, and this is the other applique block. So it's just very...
so cute.
Just press it on and you go. But I do recommend these acrylic mats. That makes it much easier. So that's what I learned on the quilt show, amongst other things.
I have to look up stuff on the quilt show too. Now, how do you do this? And you go put it in the search bar, and there's your options. A million.
Yes. And then you have to choose, okay, what works for me?
Yeah.
Because you offer so many different styles. So for the other version, the grandmother version, I like to do I have to have a raw edge, or a finished edge. The raw edge drives me crazy.
Okay.
But I can live with that.
You can do it.
I
you
think
can
it's
do
cute.
it.
I can live with that. So I prepared all my pieces, and I use a cut-right heavy-duty freezer paper. Feel how thick that is. Because in the past, I would iron 3 pieces of freezer paper together.
Whose is this?
Cut-right.
Oh,
that does the regular
I have not seen
wax
that.
paper.
Okay.
I highly recommend this. It does come in a couple different sizes, so if you have big pieces, it really works well. With this, you're going to use your marking pen and trace on the shiny side. That is very important, or else it's all going to be...
And that's just like on freezer paper.
Right. So I've got all my little pieces here, and I do use a light table. So I would line this up.
I love light tables,
They are wonderful. So I've got my little pieces here, and I'm going to place them on. And this isn't going to be a real scientific method here, but what I wanted to show you.
But if you had a light table under this, you would see.
You would see all the numbers.
Absolutely.
One thing too with this cut right freezer paper, I can use the same template multiple times.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
I can tell that I've used this before. There's a little puckering. So let's move this out of the way.
Do you cut it out from the back or just pull it out before you finish up the stitching?
I definitely take this out as soon as I finish doing what I'm going to do. And I'm using my fabric folding pen again. And I put,
This is interesting, people.
I take this apart, and it's dripping all over, and I just squirt in about 5 shots of Best Press and 1 shot of Material Magic.
Okay.
And I like this fabric folding pen because I can be surgical where I apply my starch.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tool, it's a dental tool. Go to your dentist and ask them for one.
Hey, do you see what's out the window there?
So I'm left-handed, but I can use either hand, which is very helpful, and I really shouldn't be doing this on this acrylic. But I draw it toward me.
Right.
And
right.
you can hear it sizzle, that's fine. I was teaching a class one time, and we smelled something burning, and a woman left her iron right in the middle of her applique square.
Oh.
So we put a flower on it and just covered it right up. So what I've done, which I forgot to mention, I've cut in.
Right, where the little V's are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, trimmed in. So that just gives you a sample. Another little tipsy.
Mm-hmm.
Your applique is only as smooth as your freezer paper. If you have a little nick in it, use an emery board and just use an emery board because this is so thick that you can use the emery board and get that right out.
Do you go for ribbons?
No, I've only entered a quilt once in my own quilt show.
Wow.
I did win. But no, it's not about the ribbons. I think with quilting, it's more about the sharing and the teaching and getting people together with a shared passion.
Well, and I'm going to say, speaking of that, you do have a retreat 4 times a year with this, and where is it?
It's at Snowflake Lodge in Arnold and one in Tahoe at Zephyr Cove.
And you have repeaters, right?
Yes.
Does somebody have to, I mean, is it like you are packed and then you better be in line and wait?
Right. I have waiting lists for everyone.
And I'm sure on your website you have a place to sign up for that.
No.
Oh my, it's all who you know, people.
Yeah, you have to send me an email.
Okay.
And I'm sure that you'll have that information out, and I will add you to the list.
Okay, so my question on this is, because I asked Lynn if she ever does it by the machine, and that was the wrong question, which of course you can, but I just want to say this, any tricks for these little itty bitty pointies, because those can be really a pain in the butt.
So I use silk thread, the kimono silk thread, because you cannot see.
Oh, I know, it's beautiful.
You cannot see the stitches. So when you come to a point, and I pre-threaded this because I knew I couldn't see, but look how I'll be manhandling this, and it will still snap right back.
Okay, so hold on a second. You don't change out the color for the green leaves? Okay, gotcha.
No.
So this is like a neutral or whatever.
Neutral thread, you can do everything.
Okay.
Same neutral thread to that quilt.
Okay.
So, and I like to roll my, I don't scrunch it up, but let's just take a look at this point. So I'm either going to use scissors and just put that point right in. And of course I picked a hard point to do.
Well, you could use a dental tool too, couldn't you?
You could.
Yeah.
Or your needle.
Okay.
And I would start there at the corner and start
At the
stitching.
tip you would start and then...
Yeah. Or just right below the tip so that I catch that little tail in.
Okay. Okay.
And that's one thing you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about the little tails on the raw edge.
Okay.
Which is a definite benefit.
And we think we know what she likes best, right?
Yeah.
Okay, any other tips of wisdom, or are we gonna lasso up this section and move on.
I think we're going to move on. I just wanted to mention this
I know, look how
little stitch that I added to that. That's from totally wool applique.
Right, I love wool applique too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready to move on. Your tips are tipsies, what you call them, right?
Little tipsies.
Fabulous. But now we're going to change our motion, and you're going to teach Ricky how you resize blocks and all that,
Correct.
right? Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Stick around.
Welcome back, everybody. I had to get down off my horse to get over here to be with you again.
Good.
I'm so excited. So you're going to take some blocks now that are somewhat traditional, but my understanding is we're going to talk a little bit about how to do some resizing, which you also show on our website. So everybody go check that out. But also you've got some tools that are going to make arranging and make some sense out of everything, right?
Right.
I love this.
Correct.
All right. So where are we starting?
We're starting with a 9-inch block. And if you look at the 9-inch block and just divide it into segments, there are 6 segments going across. This flying goose counts for 2 segments. So if you take a 9-inch block, and let's take a look at the math here.
And essentially we're looking at a grid, right?
Right.
A grid of 6.
9 divided by 6 is, each of these are 1.5 inches.
All right, so and yeah, this is the calculator. You don't need to see that proof in the pudding, but it's already
Oh,
changed.
yeah.
But it is 1.5 inches, and that's a finished size.
You always begin with your finished size. Don't worry about the 1/4 inches, otherwise it will just throw you off.
Right.
So those are the finished size. And in my patterns, when I have a complicated block, I always include a block layout sheet. I call this your map to your success.
Okay.
It's all about mapping and geography. So I can play with these and say, do I want it like this? And totally change the look of the block.
And I'm looking at your layout, and it's already shaded with darks and lights. So the original that was laid out based on that.
Right.
But that doesn't not give them permission. They can shake it up.
And that's why I say make it your own.
Yeah.
Decide on the layout that you like. You might like something different.
I want to keep playing with that. Can we make that
let's
happen?
play.
All right, so you do one side, I'll do another, so we
Okay.
can really see that. And while we're doing that, I would like to just ask this, because I've got a quilt laying here next to me, and there's a reason for that. So
Oh, I did this wrong.
tell me about this quilt.
This is called Country Sampler. And all of these blocks are from my patchwork math book. But remember, I don't call it patchwork math anymore. It's
Okay.
finessing the figures.
All right.
So that you can just work with the figures and decide what size that you want to make that. So if you want to enlarge all these to 12-inch, 9-inch, all of the math is in the book and on your website.
Okay, that's
already.
good. All right, I'm going to finish turning that there
Okay.
and do 3 more so that we can show the ta-da. And I know I'm taking a little time to do that, but I feel like showing the whole block with a different impact.
It totally changes it.
Yeah.
So if you really like this layout, you can make 5 of this and then turn them around and do the other.
Oh, yeah, that's a
And
shaking it up.
It was still all tied together.
All right, and so let's look at the next one, and let's change the size on this one too.
Right, so this again is a 9-inch block for starters, but I really love this stripe print.
Okay.
And I wanted to showcase that.
Now let's talk about the 9-inch so we fully understand it, because right now it's a bit exploded. What is the finished size of these little sticks here?
1 inch.
1 inch.
1 inch
So,
finish.
all right, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to play the game.
Okay.
If that's 1 inch and the rest of this whole quilt is 9 inches, I'm going to say that's 8. That means this whole thing is meant to be 4, and this whole thing is meant to be 4.
Exactly
Is that
correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Woohoo.
And then we were talking before about, okay, what if you want to make this a 12-inch block? You would probably want to increase the size of this stripe.
Okay.
So if you say a 12-inch block, and let's make these 2 inches finished.
2, 12, that leaves 10.
10
Which
inches.
means these need to be 5. That sounds crazy.
Well, when you think of a 12-inch block, and then we're going to divide it by actually 4, this is going to be 3-inch blocks. Is that right?
No, I don't think so,
No,
because we had to subtract the 2.
That's right.
If we subtract the 2, we have 10.
Right.
Divided by 2 is 5, which means each of these would be 2.5. That's what I got. Did you guys get that?
See, it takes
Let's
two of us to
scratch
figure
our
this
head
out.
a little bit.
Yeah, this is not always easy, but if you always begin with a finished size and then back calculate.
All right. Now you've got some wonderful tips on 3 different little blocks that I'm going to hope we can get through.
Okay.
Just putting them together and playing and just great patchwork.
This is a little, just one of my favorite little, I call them Y squares, and they are so versatile.
Y squares.
Y squares, and I don't know if that's the actual name, but that's what I call them.
Look at that.
So you can make these, and you end up having a pinwheel.
Okay.
So if you wanted
Okay.
to do a border and a quilt of all pinwheels, you would take the finished size and then divide it by the number of Y squares you need.
I get it.
Or,
And I was seeing this as an option. I'm like, sorry, I'm really totally, this is playtime. This is play blocks for me.
Yeah.
I could make a little ziggy-zag border
right?
that does that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then I would just have to know what these are. Are these 1.5 finished?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so 1.5 finished, so that's 3, 6.
But wait, there's more.
Oh!
My favorite.
Okay.
I'm going to take them like this. Let's add in these
Oh,
two.
no.
And I get that wonderful little ribbon border that we have on this quilt.
Oh, right here on this
Yes.
edge.
Uh-huh.
Look at that.
And notice on this, I put 2, I call them little spacer bars. So this is 9.5 right now. And I know that I want to fill this with some really nice quilting. And then I don't have to worry about any of these seams touching a block, so I don't have to line it
I'm
up.
going to come back to the quilt to show that, because that on both sides, and then lovely quilting in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yay! People are going to eat that up. Is that a favorite?
It is.
Yeah.
And this is on the Ribbon Ransura quilt.
Oh, right.
And it looks so complex, but you could see how easy that was.
Yeah. You guys can make those. This is pretty grassroots right there.
It is. So that's the Y square. Then another one of my favorite components is the double flying goose.
A double flying goose.
Double flying goose. You've got an extra set of wings.
Yep. Oh, I see. Okay, so there, yeah, I get it. Okay.
So you're going to begin with your square, and you'll be putting your blocks or your squares, and you'll be marking it. Just pretend you're making flying geese, regular flying geese.
Okay.
You stitch on the line. Some quilters end up that they're too small. So if you tend to be too small, stitch on the inside of the line,
Okay.
and then it works
Yeah,
out
yeah.
perfectly.
And this is kind of what you showed me earlier, but we're taking it a little further, right?
One
Okay.
step farther. So then we end up, once we cut it apart, and we want to put our little squares directly on here. Again, if you're running too small, stitch on the inside of the lines, and then you have 4 flying geese. And you're always going to be pressing out. Trim these with a block lock ruler.
Okay, all right, so
So
we did
you
before.
don't lose that.
Okay, all
You
right.
don't lose that. And then here comes the magic. So you've got your flying geese, and you're going to put on another wing.
Another square.
Yeah,
And sew
another
on
square.
the diagonal. You know what? You have to be on the, don't sew on this diagonal.
I have done that, and then you lose the whole thing. And then you will be trimming that off. So then when you sew that on, then you have your
That's great.
adorable little flying,
Right.
double
And
flying geese.
there's where it was trimmed off for the other one
And
to
on-
make that block.
You remember that you're drawing the line from corner to corner. You're not doing the double line.
Right.
So that's the double flying
right.
geese.
Very, very cool.
That is also on the TQS website.
Thank you.
So many people don't use stripes because they can't get them lined up.
My dad was like that. My dad just is like, if it's going to be a stripe, it has to match.
And that's how I am. It has to match. So I have to have these stripes match.
So not only are they going vertical, you guys, but just look at how amazing that is. All right, you have to have a trick for that.
You do. So I think this is 2 3/8. I cut a strip that's 2 3/8. And then I need to cut my corner units, and they have to be identical.
Oh, the stripes have to be
Have to be
exact. So
identical.
you're fussy cutting a bit.
Right. So if they aren't identical, you're not going to be able to get them to line up. So you're going to play around putting, I've got to really mess this up. That would drive me absolutely crazy. I cannot live with that. I am like your dad.
Yeah, my dad would have just freaked out over that.
And now I'll never be able to get it back the way it was.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. There you go.
So you're always going to sew the side pieces in first. And I have a little ruler that I can not locate where I would trim off the little edges first.
All right, so you do an opposite side. That's what you do first.
Opposite side.
Which is what you've got here.
Yes.
And you've already pressed it very nicely. Are you still using your best press and your starch
Yes.
and all of this to keep
Yes.
things really stable like you've
I
talked
am.
about?
I am.
Okay.
So I do opposite sides, and then I use my little ruler, and I'm cutting a 45-degree angle here.
A little notch. Yeah.
Before, in the old days, we used to fold this in half and fold this in half and then line them up. But if I cut that little 45-degree angle there, it matches up perfectly. And then I have my perfect.
Look at this.
Square and square.
That's Alex, where are you?
My nose is almost right here in
Because
on the table.
this is so you.
I
I'm serious.
would like for it to be me in a perfect world.
Oh my gosh, that's great information. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Now, this is your book, and you wrote this quite a while ago. It will never, ever go out of style. It is filled with fabulous tips, tricks, and how to
formulas.
Formulas,
and how to cut multiple blocks. I actually
Yeah.
took a class from you
Yeah.
at Alden Lane.
That's right. That's
pretty
right.
good. It
That
was
was a long
pretty
time ago.
good, yes.
And I actually wrote this because math was not my strong suit. And I kept changing patterns all the time. But I had to figure out what's the math behind this.
Right,
So it was
Well, we're
mother
glad
of
you took the
invention.
time to do that for us.
Now, you've got a website called
Sewing Wild Oaks.
Oaks.
Oaks, yes.
Yeah.
Because if you go Sewing Wild
Yeah, there's another Lynn Wilder in the world, right?
Oaks,
Yes.
you're going
Tell us
to
about that.
Yeah.
I was teaching a class, and this woman was very quiet, and I couldn't make a connection. I'd like to make connections. And at the end of the class, she confessed. She said, I didn't know you. I looked you up, and I put in Lynn Wilder Sewing Wild Oats. And it's a porn star.
Oats.
Oats.
Don't go
But
there.
you're oak.
Oats.
O-A-K. Unless you
She's-
want to,
No, she's not the.
You don't want that on your browser.
We want the quilter.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And then tell us about your Etsy store.
I have an Etsy site called Sewing Wild Oaks Designs.
Okay.
And and I sell all my patterns and books there.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I am really, it's a new year, it's a new day,
It
all
is.
that. And I'm so excited to be doing this year's BOM. And Lynn, I so appreciate that you will every month be doing tutorials. I love that your daughter,
Granddaughter.
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 will
is
be
helping
your
the videos.
camera person and all that, because she just got out of school for that.
And our fictional
Your story.
Lexi
Yes.
is going to be going
Yes.
along for the
Every
ride
month.
as
Yes.
well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yay! I'm excited.
Yeah!
You guys, I hope you're excited too. And remember, it's a new day every day.
Don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss the after set.
Lynn, you mentioned in the first segment something about pack horse librarians. I had not heard of that. Can you tell us what that is, please?
It was just a fabulous program to give jobs to women, mainly in Kentucky. There were some men also, but they were paid $28 a month. It was a WPA program. Eleanor Roosevelt started it. And with that $28 a month, they had to feed their horses, buy their saddles. Some had to rent a mule or a horse to get out into the haulers. And they were so courageous to do that. Most of the routes were 20 miles a day.
Well, what were they doing?
They were delivering books. They were reading. They would stop and read to children. They weren't always received well. A lot of the men did not want literacy to come into their homes.
Would they leave books and then pick them
Yes,
up? And so they were like a
exactly.
mobile library.
Right, and they had to be kind of careful on who they left with what, because catalogs, the Sears and Roebuck catalog, some people would take the pages and do the chinking and stick it in the walls.
I understand.
So I have one story called If Walls Could Talk, because all of these words were in the walls. So, but they would, when they had time, they would stop and read to the children. They would go to the schools, if there were any schools out in the country. And it was just a wonderful way. With my character, I say that she took this job to feed her family, but she ended up feeding her soul by touching all of these people. A lot she had known, but they didn't come into town very often.
Okay, and so what I'd like to say,
A personal story. I want to know how you weave your personal stories into that.
One of the stories that my father would always tell, because they were very poor growing up, and Christmas was coming, and they wanted this electronic and erector set. And of course they didn't have the money to buy that, but my grandfather said, your gift can make anything you can imagine. So Christmas morning came, and there was just a small box, and it was a box of chalk. And he could make anything with that box of chalk.
imagination.
Yes. Yes.
Now, I want to talk about the Paradise Fire, because in a sense, that's a modern day pack horse librarian.
Right. And if you look at the quilt, the new Laurel Ridge Block of the Month, there's a circle of stars, and I call that the quilting community. The quilting community is just fabulous. The Paradise Guild asked me to come and raffle off a quilt.
This is after the fire.
After the fire. It was 2 months after the fire, and I knew this was going to be difficult being with the Guild. And we raffled off the quilt, and we made $19,000 on this quilt called Emily Elizabeth, and that's the name of my grandmother. And a friend of mine also donated her Emily Elizabeth quilt.
And brought in more money.
Brought in more money. So I called the fire chief in Paradise and found names of first responders and people who were devastated, lost everything, and a lot of my childhood friends lost their homes. So one woman was burned and was in the hospital for 12 days. So all this money went to help the community. And the woman who won the quilt was from Michigan. And when I called her to tell her that she had won, she said, I had always thought if I was lucky enough to win, I would donate it back to the Paradise Guild. And she did.
Wow.
This speaks volumes of quilters and how they come together and they help others. And now she's become a great friend.
Well, a little piece of that story that we haven't made clear is that you grew up in Paradise.
Right.
And that you and your husband owned a home in Paradise.
Right.
That did not survive the fire.
No, it was my family home. It had been in family for 6 decades.
Oh, my word.
And when our son wants to retire, he wanted to retire to Paradise in that little cabin in the woods.
But you have 2 bricks from there.
I do have my 2 bricks from the chimney, and that's all I have.
And quilters from all over the world helped to raise the
Yes.
money that did
Yes.
so much good. So ultimately, it really is, a quilter's version of the Pack Horse Library,
Library.
seeing
Yeah.
a need and reaching out
Right.
and just bringing it home.
Yes.
Well, I have to tell you, Lynn, that I'm so excited about this year's BOM. I'm glad you didn't run screaming, because you could have. You said
I
yes,
could
and then
have.
you went, ah! Thank you so much. This is going to be a really fun year, especially with everything extra you're bringing to it. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.